All right. How's everyone doing today? How is everyone doing? So I have some interesting things to go over. We have some interesting things. I think we're gonna like. I think we're gonna like. So we're gonna talk about them. Everything from new open source projects. Something I actually called on the company to open source almost a year ago when they talked about what they had made. I like to think my call that maybe 2 or 3 people saw in the news was what helped pushed him over the edge with it. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. The first thing we're going to talk about is security this week, and boy, do we have some things. Discord alerts work. Okay, so that's actually maybe a good topic to talk about. You know, before we talk about security, let's talk about this. I'm going to do some Discord alerts. I'm going to do it only in the live stream and news channels. So you can actually mute those 2 channels if you don't want alerts for when I go live. That way you're not pinged with or alerted. But if you are wanting alerts when I go live, the live stream and news accounts I will be doing at here when I go live. Hopefully that helps people know and catch the beginning of the live streams and, you know, specifically the news. So awesome. Thanks for letting me know. The other thing is probably, I was just going to save it for the cloud news, but next Saturday, I think I have everything in place to actually launch the Null cloud. Now, you're not going to have the ability to do much in the Null cloud, but Saturday, we're going to try to put all the pieces together to make sure a new person can log in, make an account, and it's going to be there. Now, whether that system stays running or whatnot, that's beyond the point. But we're going to be doing that next Saturday. I think it should be a lot of fun. We're going to try a bunch of things. Hopefully, we're going to get something out that you can log into. You know, that might be the majority of the stuff that you can do. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to be working on the UI the rest of this week, and then it will probably be a lot of Go on Saturday and some Kubernetes. Go and some Kubernetes. The other announcement that we have to do is the weekend after that, the Saturday after that, we'll start our Go and Rust classes. They're going to be short little segments, and I encourage you to follow along. We're going to be doing some stuff to have you actually write some of the stuff, because I think that's the best way to learn, for you to actually do it and follow along with. There's going to be some stuff that, you know, maybe you don't want to actually write, but hopefully you can do and incorporate in your own project. So, stay tuned for those. I'm excited about them. As I've always said, I want us to learn something new, and so those are one of the extensions that I'm going to be trying to do to help us. All right, let's get into the software security news. Now, a lot of you probably heard that the White House released a new letter. The White House of the United States. So the President of the United States, effectively, when we say the White House, although it was probably his advisors, hopefully his advisors, released something into the news, kind of made some headlines. So it goes back to the building blocks and paths towards secure and measurable software. So this was an encouragement to companies to use memory safe software. Now, this actually specifically references something released earlier this year, which was the case for memory safe languages that was released by the NSA. So the NSA released this and did their case for memory safe software. One second, new keyboard. How do I flip between? One second. You know what? I'm going to plug in the other keyboard really quickly. I don't know how to go through tabs. It's Control Tab, right? Control Tab. Oh. I got it. Never mind. Don't need the old keyboard. Got it. So anyways, they released this. They released this encouraging people to follow that. So anyways, it's an interesting read. It's really not that interesting. They talk about memory safe languages. They talk about memory safe hardware. It's not that interesting. If you followed me any, I harp on these a lot. We actually got to read a really interesting blog about, Rust is not the answer. It will not save us, which was actually a really cool blog post about security and memory safety and the likes. So I like it. So anyways, I saw this. Now, that being said, there was something that I think is maybe a little bit more measurable that we could all look at. And that was that NIST CSF 2.0 has been released. So you can go read it. I'm actually going to give you guys the link to this. It's a good read. It's like 30 some pages long. I'm going to say 36 if my memory serves me correctly. We'll pull that up right now. 32. I was off a little bit. So the framework is not too long. But there's a bunch of other things, not just it's not just the CSF 2.0. You have quick start guides and other things that I think actually, I would say probably every security person should probably read this, but I would also say the quick start guides, maybe every software engineer should at least be familiar with some of the stuff that goes on here. It was pretty good. I've read through it, and yeah, it's pretty good. So anyways, I suggest that you take a look and give it a check. It's definitely worth checking out. So now, I know that we usually talk about hacks and breaches and things that you need to be aware of. And so, you know what? We have some of those. So let's get into those. Let's I'm hitting random keys right now. Let's get into it. The first one is a leaky database spilled two-factor authentication codes for the world's tech giants. Now, this was actually a database of YX, international Chinese company that handles routing of SMS messages. Interestingly enough, one of the really weird parts about it is the security researcher that found it actually couldn't figure out who the database belonged to. So there was a database that had a public IP. It was exposed publicly to the internet, and they found it. And when they found it, they couldn't actually figure out who owned the database. They just had the database and could access it. There was no access restrictions on it. So this was pretty rough, but they did finally figure out who owned it, and it has been rectified. But yeah, anyways. So effectively, when they're talking about the two-factor authentication, this wasn't for two-factor authentication apps. This was when you sent an SMS two-factor authentication. So maybe not as strong as the apps or specifically YubiKeys, but it is definitely one way that a lot of people use two-factor authentication. A lot of people use the SMS, and so there was a lot of data that could have been exposed there. Was it a Mongo database? I don't know that they stated what their database was. We could dig into it. I don't know if it was a Mongo database. Hi, YouTube. How are you doing? This is our new segment. We are going over the security right now. We're just talking about security stuff that happened. All right. One thing I do think you guys should be aware of is GitHub is under automated attack by millions of cloned repositories filled with malicious code. Now, these are not doing anything specifically, but what is happening here, and I think that this could be specifically detrimental to languages like Go, or Golang might be specifically oriented in such a way to be subject to falling prey to this type of attack more easily than some other languages, is because what happens is these repositories are cloned in such a way to look like the real thing. So basically they fork, let's say they fork the NullDB, and then they make it very close to the same name. So instead of the null channel, they say it's the null channels with instead of the NullDB, well, it could just be the NullDB or it could be something else, but they make it look like the official one. And then they hide in the same code. They mutate the code to have a virus. So if you use that, then your application becomes a virus on your network. And Go quite frequently is praised for the fact that it just uses the Git repositories. And so if you find a Git repository and it's actually one of these malicious ones, this is a big problem. And the hard part is this has actually been done in an automated format. So they basically have this virus in Go and Rust and all these other languages. And so what happens is they just have crawlers that are going out there, finding the Git repositories, cloning them, making them look like the original, and then then adding their malicious code to them. The NullDB. That's the Go version of the NullDB. 100% the NullDB. As we have seen, a good point that Dutch is bringing up, we have seen that Copilot doesn't actually write more secure code. This has been proven in several different research papers. This is a gut feeling I've had, and yes, I'm sure that this type of thing is only going to make that worse. So yeah. Anyways, interesting thing. You should be aware of it, but yeah, be careful with what this has been true for 20 years now. Nothing has changed here. Be careful of other people's code that you're using. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they've done. That's just, even in a non-malicious way, you have to be careful about whose code you're using. That's just it. All right, let's get back to security. All right. Last one is Epic Games reportedly hit by a 189 gigabyte hack, including login and payment info. Now, as far as I know today, Epic has refuted the claims and said that they're not aware. So either the people trying to exploit money out of them are lying, or Epic doesn't know that they've been hacked. I don't know. I'm assuming Epic wouldn't play with that if they've been hacked. So, but like I said, all I can find is hearsay on it. I looked. The Epic Games did say that they have not found any evidence, and they're not paying the ransom. So I'm going to assume at this point that they haven't been, but there was a posting for it. How's everyone doing today? So that was it for security. Did you guys see anything else in security that I missed? Let me know. Remember, always bring news articles that you find, as we will be watching them. Can you guys hear that? That was horrifying. Let me text somebody really quickly to make sure that doesn't happen again. All right. All right, so let's talk about some, I have this general software category. We're going to jump on that because there were some interesting things that happened. General software and open source news. That's what we're going to next. Let's talk about it. The first thing that I don't know surprises anybody. This company has been through 2 rounds of major layoffs. One halfway through last year, which released 250 people. Another one that released 1,000 people, which was about a quarter of their staff. But not only did they do that, they also broke some terms with some people or some contracts with some people, but it seems to have paid off for better or for worse. Now, long-term impacts, I still think the long-term impact is a negative, but Unity revenue rises 57%. Now, one thing you have to understand is that's revenue. They cut a lot. They also had a ton of negative press, and as general, games are long in the pipeline, no one thought that it would hurt them immediately. What they did was damage their reputation, which is going to take a long time to affect the pipelines. Games that were almost done already in Unity were already going to be completed. It's not going to have a short-term impact on them. What it can have is a long-term impact, as new games are less likely to be picked with Unity because people have had enough, even after the firing of their CEO. So anyways, cuts did affect, because early they cut 265 jobs with the termination of their Weta thing, and that was early in the year. But also the Weta contract was actually costing them quite a bit of money as well. So if you actually read into it, this actually saved them quite a bit of money in terms of that. So you're right that the laying off 1,000 people at the end of last year didn't have an effect. You're right. Cuts only affect profit. Yes. Well, okay, so we were talking about their net loss. You're correct. They only affect their loss, their costs, but yes. The determination of their service agreement did affect their revenue, because they went on to state that if they still had this, and I don't understand the Weta contract with the VSX Studio Weta, because they said that it would have been only 510 million. Revenue would have been 510 million, down 2%, if they had continued their VFX Studio contract with Weta. So I don't know exactly how that's going to. And my thing with the long term is, when you fire that many people, over a quarter of your company, what are the long-term impacts? I do think it will affect revenue, because you'll have less games releasing with you. You'll be able to release less features, unless if they were actually all dead weight. So, yeah. Anyways, that was interesting to see. Again, I don't fully understand the termination of its service agreement with VXX Studio Weta and why it would have so much of an impact on revenue. I'm not a financial person. Like I said, this surprised me though. All right, let's move to some open source news. Now, when Cloudflare announced last year that they made a long blog post on Pingora about how they made it and why they made it. And back then, if you guys remember, I specifically said I wish they had open sourced it. And I even went on to claim why it was a good thing to open source. I love it when companies open source things that aren't the thing they sell. Cloudflare doesn't sell Pingora as a service. They have no conflict of interest. That's not part of their, it's a thing that they needed to sell the things that they wanted to sell. Now, you can say that if Pingora was something that gave them a edge over AWS or GCP, if it was something that had some value like that, there's possibly reasons not to open source it. But there didn't seem to be anything, too secret sauce, because they released in their blog a lot of the stuff that was, the secret sauce, which then those companies could replicate anyhow. and they went ahead and actually open sourced it. So I was excited to see this. But on top of this news on the open sourcing of Pangora, which I'm very excited about, there was this announcement about announcing River, a high performance and memory safe reverse proxy built on Pangora. Now, one of the issues with Pangora is that it was originally designed for Cloudflare. And one of my statements, even at the time, had been that sometimes when a thing is built for a company, it's not even really useful to be open source because it's designed exactly for their infrastructure, their stuff, whatnot. And it looks like Cloudflare did do some work to make it open source for people to actually be able to use. It's under the Apache license version 2. And so, yeah, anyways. But it seems like they have been working because this came out at the same time on the same day. So it looks like they've been working with Cloudflare, Shopify, and ChainGuard have all worked together to make this a thing. So it seems like this has been in the process. It's not just that Cloudflare did this. It looks like our friend there at ChainGuard, and Shopify. I don't know anybody at Shopify. Do know people at ChainGuard. Have been working on this. So this is really cool. I'm very excited about it. Pangora is all written in Rust. So everybody uses reverse proxies. The ones that are currently out there do have CVEs that happen to them every once in a while. So I'm hoping that River is going to be a cool thing that we can all, default to using. Yeah, I use Rust, by the way. I mean, I'm not joking, but I was just making a meme on top of the meme that I just learned. On top of that, Polyfill.io now available on CDN.js. All right, so Cloudflare released this, and I actually wasn't entirely sure why they did this. I mean, it's work, and why would they have gone through the work? So I had to dig into this for a little bit. I use Arch, by the way. So Polyfill is, something that allows your application to support multiple browsers easily. And why did they go through this? So I had to dig into this for you guys. And I found, I guess there's controversy about who owns Polyfill.io, how do they serve it, and whether it serves viruses or not. So I had to look into this. I'm upset. Fun Null is a fantastic name. I'm upset that I don't have Fun Null as a name. I'm upset, but it seems that Fun Null owns it, and it specifically says that they don't guarantee that Polyfill.io will be secure or free from bugs or viruses. Anyways, there's a bunch of other ones, other people that are worried about Polyfill.io. So if you use Polyfill.io and want to continue using it, I recommend you give this a check. And yeah. In your country, relying on CDN.js is a risk? Well, if it's not a risk, if it's less of a risk than what you're currently doing, they did that. So anyways, that was it for the general web news. We have a little bit of machine learning news to go over, and then we can talk about the cloud news. Did anybody else have any general software news that I missed? All right. Well, so in AI ML, there was two things outside of the major cloud. There is something we'll talk about in the cloud news, but GitHub Copilot Enterprise is now generally available. So if you're wanting to go pay for it, you can drop $40 per user per month. It's quite expensive. You'll get chat, you'll get code completion, you'll get smart actions, and supported environments and policies. I don't know if it's worth $40 a month. I do like Copilot. As much as I say I'm torn. I don't actually think that junior software engineers should use Copilot because I think it's more of a security risk than it is actually a help, and that they need to learn before they have something that just auto generates garbage for them. But I do think possibly it's getting to a point where it can make you slightly faster. Possibly, especially in edge cases where you're not quite sure of the exact syntax of something weird. Possibly. Sometimes it just hurts you, though. So I also really like Copilot Chat. Like, that seemed like something really interesting in VS Code where you were able to chat about your code and get ideas. Now, $40, is it worth that? It means that it needs to save your engineers $40 worth of time. And as engineers are kind of expensive, I think it's probably fairly easy to... It's probably not difficult to say that it could possibly save you $40 of time. Does it? That's something we need to investigate further. I don't know how to actually try to measure this, but this is actually something I would like to measure. I'd like to have, like two groups of engineers do things and one have Copilot and one not, and see if it saves them $40 worth of time. It's not a whole lot of time that actually has to save them. So I think that possibly it could be that. So anyways, yeah, you should not use Copilot to write unit tests. I have tried this. Don't do that. Don't have Copilot write unit tests for you. The art of writing a unit test is not a brain dead one. The art of unit tests is not a brain dead one. I guess none of the code is. I don't know. I don't think I would use a Copilot to write my test. I think that sounds terrifying. The things that I've seen it do. Yeah. All right. This one I almost put in security. I put it in machine learning. It's security machine learning. It's machines learning about... It's not actually machines learning about security. There was over 100 malicious AI models found on Hugging Face that actually were backdooring users' machines, giving them a persistent backdoor to their machine, effectively a straight up backdoor to their machine. This was found by JFrog's security team. JFrog does like Artifactory, if you don't know who they are. And yeah, it was found on the Hugging Face marketplace. So another instance of know what code you're running. Unfortunately, I know there's a lot of really cool libraries out there, but there's a lot of people that are willing to also use your computer to harvest Bitcoin, to steal your credentials, and a bunch of other things. So you really have to be careful with these about what models you're downloading and things like that. So yeah, that's it. I heard a senior dev describe AI copilots being as a junior dev under pressure trying to satisfy their project managers. I don't know how to measure the productivity of Copilot versus not Copilot. And so this is hard. This is actually hard because what I would say is you taint the experiment. If I go right now and do something and measure how long it takes me to do, I don't care whether I have Copilot or not. The next time through will be faster. period. So I think the only way to do it is to first see how much faster I am doing something for the second time. So basically do something, measure it, do something again, do it again, and see the productivity boost just from that. And then do something new without Copilot, and then do it again with Copilot and see if I get a productive. Anyways, it's not scientific. I think that it's GitHub is effectively saying it's $40. Or you will get more than $40. And $40 worth of an engineer's time isn't a ton of time. So I don't know. I think probably they have a good case that this actually will save you money. You'll be able to hire one less engineer, and with that one less engineer's salary, you can pay for Copilot. Now, have you actually saved money? No, you haven't saved money at that point. You're spending the same amount of money, just on less individual people. So I'm not even sure. I don't know. I have to think about it. I want to understand it better. I want to think of a way to actually measure that. Measuring the productivity is so hard, though. It's so hard. And you know what? One of the things that Copilot doesn't do very well, at least that I've seen, is actually the debugging of hard problems. If you have a threading issue, it's very difficult to get Copilot to help you with it. I tried asking Copilot, ChatGPT, about the problem where I was electing 2 leaders, and it wasn't doing a very good job at my distributed threading problem and helping me debug it. And honestly, I spent more time in debugging than I did in writing code. So again, I don't know. It's a hard problem. Yeah, when you pause for 1 second and random stuff just gets put up, that's hilarious. It doesn't bother me, but yeah, sometimes it is like super random stuff. Like you're just like, oh, I don't know what you guys are thinking. All right. All right, let's jump into cloud news. Now, as I've said, next Saturday, we're going to try to deploy the Null cloud. I say try. Hopefully it will work. It should work. I think it will work. It's been long overdue. This auth thing has not been fun, but hopefully we'll do it. Hopefully you guys will be able to log in. So next Saturday, join in if you'd like to see that. It will be some Go. It will be some front end stuff and Kubernetes as we try to get it all deployed. Yeah, can anybody do a CSS only animation? I mean, like, you got to ask it something that's actually possible. Just saying. All right, let's talk about the clouds. We'll start with AWS. I've been avoiding AWS as the first one for a little while, so we're going to start with Amazon Document DB, which is MongoDB. Now supports in-place major version upgrade in the AWS Gov Cloud. So previously I talked about their in-place upgrades, and now they're rolling that out to their Gov Clouds. Usually Gov Cloud takes a little bit longer. So if you're in the Gov Cloud and have been waiting on this, it's available. Amazon Redshift announced support for scoped permission and object level privileges in data sharing. This is actually pretty important when you're trying to do fine-grained permission controls on objects. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. It's pretty cool. It's definitely an upgrade if you're leveraging Redshift. Start your engines. So this is a cool thing. 2024 AWS Deep Racer League. If you want to do a little virtual racing with machine learning, well, it's a good time to experiment building ML models and participate in a global competition to compete regionally and globally among peers and fellow ML enthusiasts for a chance to win monthly and season-long prizes and AWS credits. Now, the grand champion is going to win $50,000 and the chance to go to Vegas for reInvent. So if you're interested in learning about this, I'll drop a link in chat. And the very last thing, not the very last thing, second to last thing for AWS is the knowledge base for Amazon Bedrock now supports hybrid search. Specifically, this is retrieval augmented generation, something you might have heard of as RAG. If you don't know what RAG is, I pulled up this nice little overview for you. Basically, what RAG does and what it enables you to do is in a situation we had in 2020, we had a problem. I'll show you the problem. We had a problem. We had AIs that just made stuff up, made crap up. And now, while we still have AIs that just make crap up, and this problem hasn't gone away entirely, it has gotten better. And the way they've made it better is with RAGs. What RAGs are is basically AI makes something up, and then you check Google. I'm oversimplifying it, but you check Google to see if Google has something for it. And so you can say, yeah, this seems valid because Google said it was valid. That's kind of a RAG. Google. My goodness. My goodness. My goodness. So yeah, this is the basis of RAG is basically augmenting what the AI generates with stuff you can fetch from the internet or external services in theory. I think most just use the internet and basically is just tying that generation to hopefully a real thing. So, yeah. Anyways, so that being said, now with Amazon Bedrock, you can now use Bedrock with RAG, and that's pretty cool. On top of that, to even make this a little bit better, Mistral AI is now available on Amazon Bedrock. So you know how Azure has kind of taken OpenAI, Mistral is kind of working with AWS and is now available on Amazon Bedrock. So if you're wanting to use those AI models in your own thing, you can use them in Bedrock. All right. Sweet goodness. I'm sorry. Chat made me turn off Dark Reader for Google to prove that Google wasn't dark themed, because I thought maybe it was. Man, it really did not. Okay, it does not dark theme very well. Let's just throw that out there. It does not dark theme very well. All right, well, as the AI wars go, I know I didn't put this in AI stuff because it's the cloud news. I don't know where to put this stuff. Search embeddings with vector search. So now throughout, we talked about BigQuery. You can now search through your embeddings with vector search with BigQuery. It's kind of tangentially related to what we talked about last week, but basically just expanded on, which is pretty good to see. And another thing that I think is actually pretty fantastic is encrypting your data in transit with GK with user-managed encryption keys, now basically allowing you to encrypt data at the VIM's NIC level. So from NIC to NIC, you get this in-transit data encryption. Why this is really important is because what if some machine on your network was compromised? Is when the data is going between microservices, if that microservice hasn't been compromised, this encryption between the two machines protects your data from that compromised machine. It would only be data that went to the compromised machine that would be under threat of somebody intercepting. So it can save you. Basically, it's a layer of security so that if something or when something bad does happen, you reduce the impact that happens. So it's pretty good to see. Pretty good to see. I guess this is also kind of insecurity. Like I said, it gets hard to make these. It's cloud, and I just went with cloud. All right, let's talk about cloud code for Visual Studio Code release notes. Why did I have this? I guess, because there is the new version 2.4 coming out. I don't know why I had this. I mean, there is a new release. I don't know. There's a new button to enable, maybe that's why. I'm not sure. Not entirely sure. There's a new release. Go for it. Go for it. Let's move on while I don't know why that happened. All right. The last thing, I guess that's it. I actually don't have anything. That's it. I guess I didn't have anything for Azure. Let's take a quick look. I feel like they had to have something, right? Cloud, no, not interesting. Something available in more regions. I don't usually cover that type of stuff. Destination NAT capabilities is interesting. Public preview, Azure function support for HTTP. Wait. This actually could be interesting. Public preview of that. That's not interesting. Let's check this out really quickly. Not that. This. I'm not generally interested in Azure functions. Azure Function support for HTTP streams in Node.js is now in preview. With this feature, you can now stream HTTP requests to and response from your function apps. Okay, I mean, I think this is probably good. You know what? I was going to say, this seems like this right here. This is what it basically makes using Azure Functions possible with OpenAI responses. Because the responses are streamed back. You know, when you ask a question, it takes a while to generate, and it makes functions possible to basically use with their ML backend. Okay, this makes sense. This is probably big news. I should have covered this. I mean, I did. I wasn't not going to. Glad I checked. Cool. Did you guys see anything else in the clouds that I missed? I'm now more interested in this. Hello, RDJ Power. How are you doing? I've seen your messages. I don't know how to respond to smiley faces. I'm actually more interested now in this. I kind of need to understand it better. Is how how the termination of its service agreement with Weta positively impacted revenue. This is interesting. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about these things. I don't know. I don't know enough about them. About how a partnership with a different company would cost you that much, or impact your revenue that much. All right. Anything else you guys saw that I should have covered in the news? Remember, don't trust random code that you find on the internet. Yep. Don't do that. Use memory saved languages. What have we learned? What else did we learn today? The NIST cybersecurity framework, the CSF, NIST cybersecurity framework. Why is it the CSF? I guess it's cybersecurity framework. That's probably why. I was going to say it should be the NCF. But anyways, the cybersecurity framework has been released. You should check it out. It's good stuff. MilkV and Risk have a Risk and ARM board called Duo. What? Let me check this out really quickly before we go. Now, I have to say, I don't need another little board, but I always love another little board. Dual core up to 1 gigahertz. So is this Risk or ARM, or is it a 1 core Risk, 1 core ARM? Is it? I'm assuming it's not a dual architecture chip. It's just optional Risk or ARM. Got a TPU, integrates wireless capability. So it has wireless. Okay, so this is something we could like control the lights with. I don't really want to buy that. Let's learn more. At $9. Looks promising. Looks interesting. So wait, it's running both? They're doing a dual architecture on board? Oh, it's not a dual. Okay, so you basically get to select. You get to select at startup which one powers on, ARM or Risk. So the only people that I saw actually do a dual one was Arduino, right? They did a dual one where part of it was I think it was Arduino that did an actual dual one, but they communicated via a bridge, basically. I'll have to look it up. I don't know. So they have an ARM, a Risk, and a Risk. Okay, so this is the real-time one, and this is the one you run the Linux on. So you're always running one RISC with the real-time. Basically the Arduino. So you have a Arduino, and then you have one processor that runs Linux. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay, interesting. I kind of want one of these now. I don't need one. Um The Wi-Fi is really cool. The Wi-Fi is really cool because it allows you to do like smart things, which is pretty cool. Does it have PoE? Does it have PoE? Does it say? Does it say PoE? It doesn't look like it's PoE. That's a shame. I love PoE. I absolutely love PoE. This is cool. I feel like I should be able to leverage this better than I do. This real time versus like Linux. I feel like honestly, this is what I need to get good at to teach my drone to avoid objects. I want to run something that does machine learning, but have the real time that is able to handle the flight controller. So I feel like something like this is I need to get better at this type of architecture where you're running both, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not good at it at this point. I am not good at it at this point. Well, I might have to get one of these. I'll let you guys know if I do get one. I'm not going to get one right now, but maybe in the future. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, point these things out. This is a great place for people to raise awareness. It doesn't have to be brand new. Sometimes I miss stuff and I bring it up later. I let you guys know that it's not new. Because sometimes it's just about knowing about it. So yeah, awesome. Thank you. All right, well, that's it for me today. I'm going to let you all get going. Thank you all for joining. Have yourselves a fantastic week. I hope that you all have a fantastic week going forward. Sorry you just came in at the end. And I will see you guys Tuesday, Thursday, and remember, join for Saturday. It will be fun. See you guys next week. Bye.